From the studios of Foxboro Cable Access, located in the center of Foxborough, Massachusetts, you are watching Around Foxborough.
Hi, welcome to another episode of Around Foxborough. Tonight we have two very special guests with us. We have Joanne and Phil McLaughlin. Phil, you are a general class radio technician. You guys are both from Foxborough, and you are a, what's your class? I'm sorry. Technical class. Now you're telling technical technician. Phil, you were saying earlier that there's 3 levels of classes, correct?
Right. You take a test that the FCC puts out.
Okay.
And there's the entry level is the technician level, which Joanne has. And the middle level is general, and then there's an advanced. And there's a test at the FCC that you take, and then you get your technician's class. Then you'll take another test to get your general, and you'll take another test to get your final.
Okay.
And it's,
And this is for ham radio.
Amateur radio.
Amateur radio. Okay.
The nickname is
Nickname is ham radio, but it's amateur radio.
Right.
Okay. And what makes it amateur?
Amateur is you cannot make money.
Okay.
Okay. The FCC allows general public who have passed tests to use pieces of the radio spectrum to either advance the art of using radios or to help in times of need, or also just for camaraderie and having a good time and having fun.
Okay.
Enhancing community.
Enhancing community. Okay. And you've brought one with you today, correct?
Yes, I do.
Do you mind showing it to us?
Sure, not a problem. So this is what is known as a Go Kit. And a Go Kit is used for emergencies. If a town has to put up a shelter and doesn't have any communication, cell phones are down, you'll bring a kit like this, throw an antenna on a table, and you can talk back to the command center, which in Foxborough is the police and firehouse.
Okay.
But the shelters are usually the high school or one of the grammar schools.
So they would set something, like one of these up.
Yeah, or, the town has their own,
Yep.
but if those aren't working, we come in and
help.
And
Okay.
that's what we're another tool, and we help towns with this type of stuff.
Okay.
And we do drills, and this past weekend there was a major operation for ham radio for fun, but it was also very serious.
Right, yeah, I wanted to talk a little bit, tell us a little more about that, what goes into you guys doing a drill like that.
Yeah, so we did a drill last September. It was September. It was sponsored by the Walpole Emergency Management and their CERT group. And we had 8 different stations, and we were in different bands that the FCC allows us to use. And the whole idea of this drill was to find out who we could contact and how far we could contact away in case, with all these hurricanes and everything else, communications are down. So, we have one of these in, and I was able to talk, straight from the field in Walpole up to Derry, New Hampshire.
Okay.
We had a nice, little conversation, and the guy, what are you doing? This is what I'm doing. Having a good time. Hey, great. Yep, you're sounding great up here.
Okay.
So it was, those type things.
I think what some people think, and I thought myself before, you kind of enlightened me off camera, is, why wouldn't I just use my cell phone opposed to using the radio?
Well, the police, fire, emergency services still use radios. And you use a radio so that you have situation awareness. You have multiple people listening to the radio. You and I may be talking, but everybody else who's listening will know what we're talking about. Okay? We've got a tree down on Elm Street and, whatever it is. Everybody else who's working the same event, they'll know what's going on. If you have cell phones, now cell phones are also used in this. I have to call you, I have to call Joanne, I have to call, and I repeat the same message. It's much more efficient to say it once, and everybody who's on the same frequency is listening. That's why police and fire use radio.
Okay.
We also use it during storms and other weather events that we work with the weather.
National Weather Service.
National Weather Service.
Skywarn is what you guys work with. Yeah.
And we're trained Skywarn operators.
Oh, to explain a little more what that means.
Okay, well, go ahead, Phil.
Skywarn is a national program that incorporates citizens who are very interested in weather, and they report what's happening at their location back to the National Weather Service. Not to be the meteorologist, but to be the ground truth. The meteorologist plans that a thunderstorm is going to come through this area. He predicts that they do all of, and after it passes or as it's coming up, he's going to have, they like to know all right, this storm is a lot more stronger than we anticipated.
Is there hail?
Is there
Right.
hail?
I think
How
we've
big is the
right in
hail?
the past we've had like tornadoes come through,
Right.
and things like
Right.
that,
And
right?
we've had hailstorms too, where we have our card that we get, like kind of like a membership card,
Okay.
that you get when you pass the course, and on it gives the criteria in which you know to report, as well as it's got a little measuring on it, little ruler on it, and you measure the hail.
Okay.
And then report that
The size.
also back, because
Okay.
the size of it means, is the storm getting bigger or is it getting smaller?
Has it
And
already
it's
passed its
important.
peak? Is it not?
Okay.
And the training you get is, they don't want people calling up and say, hey, it's raining.
It's raining.
Right.
Okay.
We need some specifics
We need
here.
a little
We have
more.
lightning.
Yeah.
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 No.
So there's a criteria.
Okay. How did you guys get into this hobby?
Oh, wow. My brother-in-law was a ham.
Yeah.
Okay.
Years
He
ago.
still is.
He still is. My brother-in-law is a ham down in Middleborough.
That one doesn't get old, I'm sure.
Yeah.
And no, not at all. And Phil, N1XTB, and he's down in Middleborough, and he knows I'm a techie, I'm an engineer, so he's like, this is right up your alley, and you've worked broadcast radio for years, so
Right.
you ought to get into this. And I saw his radios, and it's like, I can do this. And that's why. And
Okay.
then
That's
I
how
got-
we originally started.
That's how I
Yep.
got into it. And then my son, who was in Boy Scouts at the time, said, "Oh, I like
that's
this."
great.
And he
Yeah.
also got a badge
A radio
From
badge.
radio
radio
badge.
badge. Okay.
Yep.
from
Add
doing
to the
it.
sash.
And then he went to there and he took his exam. 6 months later, I said, I want to know where this young man is. Here he is, 16, riding his bike all around town. I want to know where he is. We didn't have cell phones at that time.
Right.
And so he said, okay, and he carried his radio with him on his bike all the time. And so I said, okay, I'm going to take my exam. So I studied and I went down the Cape and they ran what they call a tech in a weekend. So I studied that as well, and then took my exam after the weekend and passed the exam, and then I got my call sign. The very funny thing with the call sign is, as you can see, my call sign is KB1 FVN, Foxtrot Victor November. We also use the
The
font,
alphabet, the phonetic alphabet.
Phonetic alphabet, yeah. So anyway, my son, who took it 6 months prior to it, his call sign is KB1FJN.
One letter off.
One letter off.
Yeah.
So
Very strange.
How it
Yeah.
basically works, you take a test, a group of volunteer examiners will grade your test and they send it into the FCC. And once it's approved by the FCC issues you your call sign. It's randomly generated and it's
wow.
on a website. So
How weird is that?
How
yeah,
weird is that?
exactly.
And the other
Exactly.
thing
Right.
is,
It's like
Phil's
mine is
call sign,
CYO.
CYO, and
Yeah.
he coached CYO
Basketball
women's
for
basketball
years.
Yeah.
for
So it was like,
20
all right,
years.
I'm because
Keep it this,
you
right.
you can pay the FCC and get a
Fancy one.
Yeah.
you
Right.
know,
Like a license plate.
like a
Yeah.
license plate.
Right.
Same thing. Vanity call. I'm
Right.
like, nah, that's fine. CYO is good.
That's perfect. Yeah.
Okay. And your son, you said that he still uses it to this day?
Absolutely.
Yep.
He's
He's up in-
fire chief up in Vermont, and they use it because also the other thing with being in Vermont, they have mountains,
Right.
and the cell phone situation is not the best. If he's driving along, there'll be many times where it totally cuts out. And so the amateur radio system has many towers in the area, and he can just go from one repeater, which is on the by the tower, and from one repeater to the next repeater, and continue his conversation with someone who he is working with. Say there's a disaster somewhere he
Yeah.
has to go, and continue the conversation safely.
Okay. Have you guys ever helped out
Oh, yeah.
on your own with disaster relief and things like that?
Yes, yeah. We've we helped out with the in the town here once with the shelter
Yeah.
way back. Joanne helped out.
It was back. It was back in the borough, and it was my 20. I think it was my 25th class reunion, And my friend from Sweden was even over, and the poor dear, 3 days after it happened, they opened up the shelter, and telephone communications were not working particularly well. So
A lot of the town was out of power,
Yep.
so it was a warming station more than an overnight station.
Okay,
well,
yeah.
we did have a lot of people overnight there
but-
too. But
Yeah.
That was the initial
That
step.
was-
But
so-
that was where we helped on that.
Yeah.
So between the Skywarn stuff and then we're on call for different events.
Okay.
Okay.
Yep.
With what is known as ARES, Amateur Radio Emergency Services.
Okay.
And ARES, you take a bunch of trainings, and then you're on a list if something comes up.
Okay.
We have friends that we were not involved with this, but I knew a lot of friends who were called in who went to New York after 9/11 because New York's communication center was on one of those towers.
Oh, wow.
So all the communications, so they brought in HAMs who had been either from Red Cross or from ARES from different states, and they went down and they were doing dispatch until they got up the regular communication center up. So things like that.
Yeah.
You don't think about it. It's
No,
like,
you
the police is always on. No, well, guess what?
Right.
You know.
When something like tragedy happens like that.
So
Yeah.
part of it too, we also do like a lot of practice things, which can be a lot of fun. And there are a lot of, there's even a women's group, the young ladies of amateur radio. And they have what we call a net. And Thursday mornings you can get on, and I can talk to Wyoming, I can talk to New York, and another lady I know very well in Avon that I talk to.
So
It's a lot of community too.
yes,
Yeah.
a lot of community.
to
Yeah.
it.
So just to know what a net is. A net is just an on-air meeting.
Okay.
So
Gotcha.
I'm in my back room
Yep.
on my radio at a certain time on a certain frequency along with a bunch of other people. And there's somebody there who acts as net control, the moderator, just like you're moderating this
Yep.
meeting.
Yep.
That's what they do. So, and they'll do a round table and they'll go around and they'll check in. And there's a net tonight at 8 o'clock on the Walpole machine. There's a net on Sunday night on the same Walpole machine. Bridgewater machine has a net every Tuesday night. The Norwood machine has a net every Tuesday night. So there's a lot of activity.
Paxton has
Yeah.
one every night.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah. So
All
people can get on
and
there
all for
whenever
different
you want
reasons.
to.
Yes.
The Norwood one at Tuesday night is a club, the club guys,
Okay.
and they just
Yep.
talk about what's happening this week, how they doing.
Right.
The Sunday night net is an emergency management night, emergency preparedness net. So we talk about how we use our radios. Well, we're going to plan for some storms.
Okay.
The weather coming up. Did you do the switch over in your car from the summer to the winter?
Right,
Right.
right.
It's stuff that you say, oh, okay. But we also were practicing using the radios.
Right. Yeah.
And
that's got to be huge.
Because
It
if
is.
Right.
building
because you
one
want
of
to know
these,
it works when you really need
when you
it.
really need it. Right.
so we use it on these drills and these nets, and you break it out, and you just, I can quickly walk through what it is.
Right. Yeah. That'd be great.
Yeah. So down here in the lower section is the main radio. This is a 2-meter 440 radio, which means it works on the 2-meter band.
And you made this all on your own.
Yes.
Okay.
Based on some of the other guys who helped me.
Yeah. Right.
The head of the radio is here, and this is the control. This is a distribution, so I could hook up several other radios to this base, and I could actually spread out if need be. If we had a situation where this is what is known as a power gate, and in here is a regular power supply and a battery. And what the power gate does is when the power supply is plugged in, it supplies power to the radio so I can use the radio, but it also providing power to the battery. And it acts like a computer APC. So if the AC power goes away, I will still run because I now have a battery built into this.
Okay,
And
gotcha.
I can run for about 6 hours with this battery.
With the battery.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then of course there's a voltage meter that tells me what kind of current I'm drawing, so I can be technical to see how good my system is running.
Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah. So it's
And a microphone.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
You got to have your mic.
Now you brought a couple of other ones as well.
Yes. So
This looks like a little cheaper way maybe to get into it.
this is
Yes.
exactly.
Yeah.
That's why I wanted him to bring
Yeah,
the
that was-
lesser expensive.
So
one,
this is
which
what is
this
known
one.
as a Bofang.
Can you
Okay.
put the
These-
cover down maybe so they
No,
can see it?
they can see it.
Okay.
The Bofang is just like anything these days, is a Chinese-made radio.
Gotcha.
Okay, so you can get these on Amazon. They generally run like $35, $40.
Okay.
So these are nice to have. So like this past weekend was a big amateur radio weekend. Communication was provided for the head of the Charles and over 300 operators.
Yep.
So if you're working the head of the Charles, half of the assignments are on a boat. If you drop your radio that's $300 into the Charles, you're not going to be happy.
No, right.
You drop your $30
Not the end of the
Bofang,
world.
it's like, exactly, not
Right.
at the end of the world. There's limitations to what this can do. It's smaller antenna, its range is limited, the battery only lasts so much. But to get you in to understand how to use a radio,
Yeah.
it's perfect.
Yeah. Low cost of entry
Low cost,
and
Very
low,
low
low
cost.
cost entry.
This is a little high.
a little higher end. We don't want to drop that.
We don't want to drop
No.
this. This is an ICOM. This is an FM radio. It's also a digital radio. It does digital transmission. It will take your GPS signal, and I can mount, it has a way of transmitting a GPS location onto a map and all this other stuff so that you can actually see where you are. We use that function every spring down in Rhode Island for the Ride the Road event, which is a muscular dystrophy fundraiser, and there's a 100-mile bicycle ride.
Yep.
So we have what is known as SAG wagons, the cars,
Yep.
support and gear,
Yep.
and we'll put a APRS system on the SAG wagons so that the central command will know where the wagons are on the course.
Perfect.
And if somebody calls up and says, I got a flat tire and I'm between water stop 2 and 3, and we'll go, oh, we have a SAG wagon at 2. We call them up on the radio and say, hey, you got a bike number 12 is broken down. We'll go get them.
So we have one person, we have two people in the SAG wagon. One person's the driver.
Yep.
And usually has some understanding of how to fix a bike.
Yeah.
And
You
and
hope.
myself, an amateur radio operator.
yeah.
So I've done SAG many
Okay.
times as the amateur radio operator.
Now, do you guys have like a favorite thing that you've done over the years?
Favorite thing?
Favorite thing?
Field day?
Yeah, field day would be favorite thing.
Yeah.
Okay, so field day, as with any group and organization, you have a national organization. The national organization is the ARRL, American Radio Relay League, and it's out in Newington, Connecticut. And they sponsor an event, a 24-hour event in the spring, where you take your radio out of your house and you go to a field or a
Playground
yeah,
or-
Yep.
Anywhere.
and you
out.
operate, and he who makes the most contacts wins. And
Okay.
it's like a contest, but not a contest.
fun.
You're,
It is.
Yeah.
You're trying to make sure that the stuff will work in the field. That's why
Right.
I have a battery in this. I was like,
Right.
okay. That's
Okay.
how I know how long this battery lasts.
Right. Yeah. Right. Right.
And it's expanded quite a bit, and it's not just United States.
Yeah.
Canada is involved, Mexico, it's across the world.
Right.
But it's
bulk
sponsored
of
by
it
the
is-
U.S. and you know, it goes from 2 o'clock Saturday afternoon to 2 o'clock Sunday.
Oh wow.
It's a 24-hour, and
Wow.
There's a
people
lot
bring,
of coffee.
Yeah,
I would imagine.
and there's some very good food. Some of
Yeah,
these,
yeah.
some
Oh,
of
yeah?
these clubs put on
Yeah,
a dinner
they
that's
do.
just
Pretty good
like
spread.
It's really
real
good.
good spread. The
Yeah.
Danvers group up on the North Shore, man, their
Yeah.
food is awesome, and the Norwood group has done a good job.
We're
of-
mostly hamburgers and hot dogs.
Yeah.
But you know.
Oh, you go around to the different.
Right.
Around here, a big site for that is the World War I Memorial Park.
Yeah.
Yep. In Attleboro.
Attleboro.
Yeah.
The sturdy.
Really? Yeah, we go there all the time.
North Attleboro.
Yeah.
North Attleboro. You're right.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, the Sturdy Memorial Radio Group that runs out of the Sturdy Memorial Hospital, they run their field day up there. And if you go up there and you're not a ham, they'll, hey, come on in, they'll show you all.
Show you
And a
everything.
couple of guys actually bring campers.
Oh wow.
So they stay overnight with their
Stay overnight.
campers.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
And my son, who's the amateur radio operator, has tented.
Yeah.
Oh really?
Yeah.
Yeah. He's not bringing the camper. He'll
No.
tent.
No, he'll
he-
tent.
he uses tented.
Yeah. Yeah.
So to operate something like this, like the cheaper ones like these, you do have to have the certification, and
Yes.
the license. Even though I buy one on Amazon.
Right.
I can't just get on there and start talking to people.
because
Right.
there's all sorts of rules and regulations,
Okay.
and it's self-regulated. And the FCC has offices in all the major cities, Boston, New York, and they have listening stations. And
Right, and they're listening.
they're
They'll
listening.
track you down if you don't have an amateur radio operation
Gotcha.
license.
And we're self-regulatory. The guys
Yeah.
and gals who are on, you'll know when somebody jumps on and you're new. Okay.
Right. Right.
What you call, where are you, we'll help you. And if you just, that wasn't a good signal.
Right. Right.
And with the new GPS signals, I don't know where you are.
I know where you are, right? Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, these don't have that, but again, these are limited range, limited power.
It's a good starter.
It's a good
It's a good starter, right?
And this is these broadcasts in FM mode. In the old days when amateur radio was always all AM or CW.
Yep.
Everybody did CW. That was the.
That was right.
That was, well, that came from amateur radio operators.
Right.
And there's still people today who run Morse code, and I know somebody that does 45 words a minute, and he does a contest.
Wow.
He'll be talking to you just like we're talking here, and he's got it strapped to his leg. And it's like, I just hear a blur. I don't know how you do that. Oh, that was so and so over, and okay.
Right.
But it's, again, you don't have to do it, but you do things for fun.
Right.
And
Yes.
that's the
It's
fun
all
side.
right. That's a hobby.
And it
right.
keeps the mind going.
Right.
you
Yeah.
know.
All right. Well, Phil and Joanne, thank you guys so much for coming in tonight. This was unbelievably informative.
Well, I'm
Okay.
glad. I
Yeah.
hope that more people might be interested in joining us, taking up the hobby of amateur radio
On the
operations.
airwaves. Yeah.
And,
We have the group over in Mansfield, the Eastern Mass Amateur Radio Group, and they give license. We're VEs. We give our license exams right
Okay.
over there
Give
in
them right
Mansfield.
there. Okay.
Yeah.
And when does that meet?
They're the third Thursday of every month except Thanksgiving,
Thanksgiving. Yeah.
because
Right.
you have to kick it up.
Right.
But and you can just check for the Eastern Mass Amateur Radio Group website.
Okay.
EMARG.
Yeah.
And the other thing too is you can take a look at AARL.org and get much more
That's the amateur
information.
radio
Yes,
That's
the
the
national.
national website. And so if you go on that website, you can find a group.
You can find a group. You can find books on how to get your license. They sell the books. They sell, and there's a great resource. Just like you go to any national resource, it has all the
Right.
resource, and that's what drives amateur radio.
Perfect.
So-
Well, again, thank you, Phil and Joanne.
Thank
This
you
was
for
excellent.
having us.
Well, thank you for having us.
Of course. Thank you so much,
very
guys,
much.
for coming in.
Thank you.
I'm Tim Green. This was Around Foxborough, and thank you so much for watching. Please visit our website at fcatv.org. Thank you again. Good night.